Hello and welcome to USB certifications, important updates in textile exchange and GOTS programs webinar in our series of webinars. USB certification has been auditing the conformity in accordance with the national and international standards and doing the certification for those standards for more than 20 years. Our fundamental philosophy is to make our customers feel that we are a business partner which adds value to their processes and to improve our service mentality with a view of continuous improvement. As USB certification, we aim to increase the competitiveness of our customers and make it sustainable with our national and international accreditations, authorities, representatives, solution partners, experts, and experienced professional staff. While reaching our vision of sustainable growth with our globalization strategy, operational efficiency, and strong infrastructure, we contribute to the development of organizations which are certified by us with our independent and impartial audit approach and value-added services. In our 21st year as an important actor in the international arena, we will continue to add value to our stakeholders with our new corporate identity and logo. Today's webinar will be presented by me, Ali Ertuğrul, the Technical Manager for Textile and Recycling Certification Department, and Mr. Arman Demirbağ, our responsible TC Operation Manager for the same department. You can see our email addresses. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach us from these emails. I would like to state that today's webinar will be recorded and the webinar recording and slides will be shared with all our participants, and the webinar recording will also be published on YouTube for public access. The content for today's webinar will be about ASR 106 upgrade to version 2.2 accepted equivalent standards policy. And we will also talk about current requirements in TC processes and also how you can manage your subcontractors and the scope certification requirements. When we share our webinar slides with you, you can access all these documents as a link from the references page. So we will be using ASR 106, the content claim standard, CCS certification procedures, policy for transaction certificates, and policy for scope certificate as references. So as a summary slide, we would like to give you what we are going to talk about. The critical changes include, starting on December 1st, all GOTS to OCS TC applications will require all TC chain documents to be presented to the certification body, and also these TC applications has to be approved by Textile Exchange. All ginning facilities that are within the supply chain where the TC turns from GOTS to OCS has to be also OCS certified. Starting in October 1st, the order number and production date will be required for both Textile Exchange and GOTS standards. For TC applications, we have an update regarding the invoicing offices. These are offices that issue only invoice. They are not trader in that sense, but they're responsible for either or both purchasing the input material and also for the sales of the output material. We would like to speak about the input product financial record control. That's a measure that is strictly implemented by Textile Exchange and GOTS. So any financial record for the input TCs must be reviewed by the certification body. Buyer license number has to be present on your TC applications if your buyer has a valid scope certificate. So we would like to start with ASR 106, accepted equivalent standards policy. Basically what it says is that starting from the farm up to the output TC, you have to provide all related documents, which we will talk about in detail and exactly tell you what these documents are in the upcoming slides, that you have to provide these list of documents to the certification body. So some of you may be familiar with that before, because for GOTS to OCS in conversion thesis, we were already requiring these list of documents to be reviewed by us and also by Textile Exchange. Now this new requirement will also require organic products to be treated the same way and to be reviewed in the same manner. We cannot approve any of your TC applications without getting approval from Textile Exchange, and we will tell you exactly which documents we share with them, and they may request additional documents from us upon review. Another critical change is that if you want to turn any of your GOTS products after manufacturing, after processing into an OCS product, then the ginning facility where this cotton or other organic material has been processed has also have to be certified by OCS. And this must be, of course, before the shipment TC of that certain ginning facility, meaning that they have to have a valid OCS scope certificate before issuing a TC. If they know down the supply chain any of their products might be turned into an OCS product. So we as a certification body are not able to accept any TC application where you are not able to present a scope certificate that was valid before the transport document from ginning to their buyer. Another key requirement is that the validity date of GOTS and OCS has to be the same, and they have to be from the same certification body. Application date will be taken as a basis. So it's meaning that if you have a full and accepted application before December 1st, then we will not apply, we will not review according to these criteria before December 1st. So if you have any stock material that is not compliant with these requirements, we would suggest you to make all your applications before December 1st. To make it a smooth transition, Textile Exchange is making the following accommodations. If there's any GOTS certified facility, it can be a ginner, it can be a spinner, it can be a fabric maker. So it doesn't matter, as long as a facility has a valid GOTS scope certificate, then it is eligible to apply for an OCS scope certificate without an audit. So without an audit and without any registration fees. So that means for between September 1st, 2022 and June 30, 2023, you will not pay any registration fee for these facilities, and we will accept your application for any facility with a valid GOTS scope certificate. Without an audit, we will accept them and issue an OCS scope certificate. What we will do is that the newly issued OCS scope certificate will have the same validity date. So what it means is that in the next audit cycle, the GOTS and OCS will be audited together on site, and the registration fees will be applicable. So this is a one-time only application. So the practice in USB certification will be as follows. We will receive no certification fee. So that means we are not only not taking registration fee, we are also waiving the certification fees. So you'll not be paying anything if you apply between September 1st and June 30, 2023. You can submit your applications through our client relations department starting on October 3rd. So this is Monday. And if you don't receive any full and complete application for TC applications before December 1st, then it will be evaluated according to the new criteria starting on December 1st, 2022. So here's our suggestions. If you like to receive an OCS scope certificate without an audit, without paying a registration fee, we would recommend you to apply at least 3 months before the expiry date of the GOTS scope certificate, because they have to be audited in the next audit cycle together. So you have enough time to prepare for this audit. Also, we would suggest you to complete the TC applications for all transactions that made and will be made from your inventory that have GOTS input and OCS output until November 25th. So this is a suggestion because there will be an application review and also approval duration, approval by Textile Exchange. So we would suggest you to complete all your applications by December 1st. TC application documents and processes. So as part of ASR 106, because of the client contracts that you have signed with us as your certification body, the following documents have to be submitted, which we'll be presenting in the next slide. The ones that we mark with asterisks will be submitted to Textile Exchange for approval, and they may request additional documents if necessary. So we'd like to stress that none of your data will be shared by any other party than program owners, accreditation bodies, or third parties authorized by them within the framework of data confidentiality. If any of your suppliers, because of the documents that you will request from them, have any concern about sharing React documents with you or with us as your certification body, they can directly share these documents with the assurance team, who are responsible for approving these documents. So they can share these documents directly with assurance. What they have to do is that during your TC application, we are providing you a TC application number. You can give this TC application number, TC number, to your supplier, and by stating the TC number and enclosing the documents, they can directly send to assurance team for the approval. So we would like to tell you exactly what kind of documents that we would like to do. Documents of farm, where the raw material is produced. This is where your organic cotton is sourced from. So you have to have the scope certificate that belongs to farm, which means it has to be coming from a scope certificate that is accepted under iPhone. We are providing the link of accepted regulations, the link to ASR 213, the materials, products and processes classification guide released by Textile Exchange. And there is the full list of organic regulations that are accepted under, and the scope certificate from the farm should be compliant with that. We also have to see the transaction certificate from farm to GINR. We also have to see the GMO test analysis done by the GINR. And we have to see the invoice and the financial record. Financial records meaning a bank statement or a bank transaction slip or any kind of official financial record that proves there was indeed a financial transaction between the buyer and seller. And before coming into the input product, you have to supply during your TC application all TCs in between the farm until the output product, all TCs. So we have to ensure there is a traceability back from the output product that you are making TC application for, all the way back to the farm. And accompanying each TC that you submit, there has to be invoices that are referenced in this TC and also the financial records. The quality test report declaration, purchase order document, transport document, invoices, and financial records are what you on a regular basis submit for your input TCs. Also, for your output products, you have to declare the same. So we have to look at the quality test report or declaration by you. We have to look at the purchase order document, the transport, invoices, and financial records. So we have to ensure that this product has actually been sold by financial records, and we have to check that according to the quality of the input material, is the quality of the output material achievable? So we have to check that. The part that we highlighted in orange is the list of documents that are requested by Textile Exchange for approval. So for each of your TC applications, we will be sending these documents to Textile Exchange for approval. And by additional documents, we are referring to the ones that we refer with the blue arrow that you see. So that means documents from farm and TC and the accompanying documents along the supply chain may be further requested by Textile Exchange depending on the application. And if any of your suppliers does not want to share records with you, then they are able to share with the assurance team, as we have explained on the previous slide. Production date and purchase order requirements. Starting on October 1st, meaning this Saturday, GOTS and Textile Exchange standards will require you to input your order number, meaning your purchase order number. It was not mandatory until now, but it will be mandatory starting on October 1st. So you have to input the purchase order number and you'll not be able to use invoice number on the purchase order number field anymore. Production date information was optional until now, but it will be mandatory. So we will request you to enter your production date. Please keep in mind that all data shared by you in these TC applications and all data that is shown in your issued TC transaction certificates are shared with Textile Exchange's central database system on a nightly basis. So that means they will not accept any TC application that is missing a production date or a purchase order information. Also, we would like to remind you that if you have a production that is spanning multiple days, then you should enter the last date of production for a particular batch or lot. We would also like to give you an update of how we are going to certify, meaning how we are going to issue scope certificates for invoicing offices, and also what will be the requirements for the controlling ownership structure. By invoicing offices, we mean any office that is not a trader, so they don't just buy and sell the same product without transformation, without warehousing, just buying and selling. So that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about offices that buy input material for the group of companies that are under the same scope certificate, and they or may be responsible for the sales of these output products. And that's only what they do. They are not included in the management. They don't produce anything. They don't store anything. They don't transform any product. They don't handle any product. They only issue invoices. So according to the new guideline, these offices have to be included in the scope certificates as a separate facility. And the right designation for these facilities for the process code will be PR0000, which is no processing. In your scope certificates, you will see this facility in the site annex of your scope certificate with the PR 4-digit 0 code, which is no processing. If it is not a GRS standard, then there isn't any requirement for an audit for this facility. So that means if it is OCS, RCS, or any of the responsible animal fiber standards, then it will not require any audit. Because of the social compliance criteria of GRS standards, we have to conduct employee interviews with this office, and there has to be an audit, so there will be certification fees included. We also like to remind you that where certified entities have multiple sites under common ownership, all sites must be included in the scope certificate, meaning that these sites that are under common ownership mean they are legally bound. So either they have the same shareholders who have the controlling share in these structures, or they have the same parent company, or they are sister companies legally, or they are subsidiaries. One of them is a parent company and the other is a subsidiary of each other. Then they have to be in the same scope certificate, which means that none of these facilities should be independently certified for the same standard. If you like to receive more information, you can contact our client relations department on how you can do unit additions for your existing scope certificates or change requests. We would also like to remind you that the financial record control is not only valid for output TCs, but also valid for input TCs as well. So if you have received any transaction certificate from your suppliers and you like to use it as an input TC, that means you have to provide invoice and also the financial record, bank statements, the SWIFT messages, letter of credit, anything that proves that there was indeed a financial transaction between you and your supplier. In USB certification, starting in November 1st, we will start checking input TCs. And if you didn't make any payment for that particular shipment yet, because of the arrangement between you and your supplier, then it is the same as the output TC application. What you'll do is you will upload that the financial transaction has not happened yet. So you will upload anything that proves of the payment terms. So it can be on your invoice, it can be a separate agreement. So you will upload the document that shows the payment terms. And what we will do is that we will also check your input TC records and match it with invoice and financial records in the next audit on site, based on a sampling basis. Buyer's license number, we were not enforcing filling out this field until now. But it will be required from now on. So, which means that if your buyer, if the party you are selling to has a valid scope certificate from the standard, then you have to learn the license number that is given by the certification body for that particular client, and it must be stated in the TC. This is a repeating notification, rules for 100 days and gaps, and this part will be presented by Mr. Arman Demirba, our TC operation manager. So I'll leave it up to him.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Hello, everyone. Welcome again. In that repeating notification, we are mentioning rules for 180 days and gaps. That mean is referring to Article 8.2 and 8.3 of ASR 104 version 3.0 TC policy. The certification body shall not issue a transaction certificate unless the certified organizations held a valid scope certificate for the standards with the same certification body on the applicable shipment dates. In that article, a suspended, withdrawn, or expired scope certificate is not considered to be valid. That's the rule all of the certified organizations aware. And if the certification body is receiving a transaction certificate application, and if it's a complete and valid application in 90 calendar days, certification bodies has to issue a transaction certificate. And if a complete and valid application is not received within 180 calendar days, certification bodies shall not issue the transaction certificate. We have a notification for you in that part. Applications for a transaction certificate will not be accepted for shipments made outside the scope certificate validity for textile exchange standards. Transaction certificates that are not fully and completely applied within 180 days from the date of first shipment will not be accepted. Applications between 91 and 180 days will be subject to risk analysis, and the result of the risk analysis will be reported to the certified organization. Risk analysis is applying specifically to the TC application, as everyone knows. Since the result of the risk analysis depends on the product quantity, the number of days applied after shipment, and many other parameters, the result of the risk analysis may be different for each TC, each transaction certificate. If the result of the risk analysis is low risk, certification body can issue the transaction certificate. But if the risk analysis result is high risk, certification body cannot be issued that transaction certificate. For that reason, we recommend that you make your TC applications as short as possible after your shipment date on your TC applications. That part is requirements for adding independently certified subcontractors. Based on the articles C5.4 and C5.7 of the CCS 101 Content Claim Standard, the organization shall receive approval from the certification body and an updated scope certificate prior to outsourcing to a new subcontractor. And C5.7 says, C5.7.2 says, inform the certification body of the outsourcing and follow the certification body's instructions regarding transaction certificates for outsourcing. We have also a notification for you. Since transaction certificate cannot be issued between the organizations holding the scope certificate and the subcontractors, the organizations holding the scope certificate must have made an application to add the product to scope certificate before sending the product to the subcontractor. We have marked the important sections in these articles in bold, C5.4 and C5.7.2. Since it is not possible to issue job work transaction certificates between scope holders and subcontractors regarding the current transaction certificate policy, it is important to including the independently certified subcontractors which you use as a subcontractor in your scope certificate before outsourcing the product.
So, thank you to Mr. Arman for his valuable input. As we said, the webinar recording and slides will be shared with all our participants. We will try to answer some of your questions if you have any. So if you have any questions, you can write down with you. Your emails, you don't have to post your emails to the chat box because we already have emails from the registration links, and we will share the presentation slides and the recording link with you from there. If you have any questions, you can write down in the chat box right now. Mr. Mohammed Wasim is asking, is it vital for subcontract to have certificate from the same CB? If you are referring to associated subcontractor, then automatically we will accept all that list, your site annex, your list of associated subcontractors, and your list of independently certified subcontractors if you have a valid GOTS scope certificate with us. And yes, GOTS and OCS has to be from the same certification body. Mr. Ali Haidar is asking, can you please list down the documents disregarding the complete traceability? We already did in one of the slides. You can check our webinar slides. If Mr. Leo Su is asking if the company from buyer do need a scope certificate number for us going forward? Well, at that point, if you're applying for GOTS to OCS, that means it's already turned from GOTS to OCS. So the scope, the transaction certificate is moving forward as an OCS product. It cannot go back to a GOTS product. So I don't quite understand, I guess, what you mean if your buyer needs scope certificate number for us going forward. You will need the license number of your buyer in your TC application, if that's what you're meaning. I hope I was able to answer your question, Liosu. If you have anything else, a buyer wants to hold goods for a longer time than 180 days. In this case, what can be done? So shipment date and the date of application are the key dates here. So if there is more than 100 days between the date of shipment and the date of application, the TC application, then it's not eligible for a transaction certificate. A buyer wants to hold goods. So you ship the products to your buyer, but what I understand is that they want you to apply for a single TC for multiple shipments that span a time, I guess. So in that sense, make sure that you apply for transaction certificates in chunks, in regular intervals, not to miss the 180-day rule. GMO, Mr. Mohammed Irfan is asking, what is GMO analysis report? GMO is genetically modified organism. So basically it's checking if the cotton variety that is being subject to test has any genetically modified, is it genetically modified? So as part of the organic regulations, GMO is not allowed, and it has to be proved by GMO analysis test reports. Buyer license number is mandatory if your buyer has a valid scope certificate. So in some cases, brands don't have scope certificates, Mr. Mohammed Suhail Shahid, then it's not required. You know, the brand requirements will be enforced starting in March 2023. Mr. Ali Reza is asking why we are going to be complex our Pruva system. I'm not sure I quite understand your question, but he's following up with a question. I have no payment proof because I don't want to give confidential. It's our confidential. This is not something enforced by USB certification, but by the program owners. So I would suggest you working with OCS suppliers if you don't want to deal with these verifications. 90 days is a short time to request the TC. Please review the rules. 90 days. So 90-day is a rule where if your scope certificate expired and you migrated to another certification body, then for 30 days, the certification body must definitely issue the TC if you have submitted and full and complete application. And between 90 days and 30 days, it is subject to risk analysis. I understand, Mr. Ali Reza, but there's nothing we can do about the confidentiality, these confidential documents. As we said, as part of the data protection rights under local regulations, EU directives, and also with the client agreement that you sign with us, we are protecting these data. So Shabir Ahmed has a question. If we are a cut to pack factory, we buy yarn or fabric from a certified raw material provider. We get a TC of raw material, yarn or fabric. Do we still need to get the financial documents and test reports from the supplier? Yes, but please keep in mind that financial documents means if it is an input TC, then the financial document has to be from your side. So it has to be your bank statement for input TCs. And if it is further down up the supply chain, meaning that you said you're getting yarn, so that means the spinner that you are getting your yarn from has to also supply the TC that it received from the ginner. And you have to receive the financial transaction between the ginner and the spinner and the accompanying invoice to that TC. And also you have to receive a financial transaction and invoice between farm and the ginner, and also the other materials that are requested on the farm level. If you receive for the finished product, do we need to provide a product test report? If it is a finished product, we're just getting declaration. So let's say it's a t-shirt, then you will provide the GSM, you will declare the GSM of that fabric used in that t-shirt. So test reports mostly from ginner to spinner, spinner to fabric. If you think about it, so we get the fiber length, fiber fineness, when the fibers are processed by the spinner, and we look at the output product, the yarn count, which can be a declaration, but fiber fineness and fiber length has to be a laboratory test report. Mr. Safet bin Salam Sajib is asking, was it necessary to collect financial documents of farm and gin level after receiving? Good question. So I'd like to tell you a little background of what's happening. As I have stated, Textile Exchange has a central database system. So that means they can do analytics of the data they are receiving, which means they can they know how much cotton is produced all over the world, country by country, region by region. They also know from the data they receive from these TCs overnight that how much cotton is being processed under Textile Exchange standards as organic. But what they don't see is that what is the volume of product actually processed by GOTS, because you have to add those numbers together with GOTS, and they want to check if the total organic products certified under these two program owners exceed the number of achievable organic production in the world. So that's a control measure they do. And GOTS hasn't switched to a central database system yet. So Textile Exchange is not communicate on a frequent basis with the GOTS database. Because of this reason, they cannot check the volumes. They cannot check the GMO reports. To ensure stability and safety of their own standards, they have chosen this method. So that's what I'm going to say about that. As we have stated, we have no control over the rules implemented by the program owners. We always give your feedback and your concerns. We share with them with regional meetings and webinars, but they are the final implementers and enforcers of these rules. And also to avoid double selling or fraudulent activities, they have chosen to check the financial records. Mr. Ejazuddin is asking, from shipment date, can we request TC within 100 days? Yes. When we receive a full and valid application, then you'll be eligible to receive a TC. Mohammed Suel Shahid is asking, shipping documents required during yarn TC edition, please explain what is importance. We have not asked shipping documents if it is not your input TC or your output TC. So in between, we are only asking for invoices and financial records. Sometimes customer cannot sign the sale contract. You just draw the PO and share into email. Purchase order is okay. Purchase order can also have, I think you are referring to the payment terms. Purchase orders also have payment terms, which says like 6 weeks after the shipment or 5 days after receival of the goods. Those are fine. As long as your payment term dictates that the payment will be after, ensures that it's after the TC application date, we accept them. We are a home textile manufacturer. Do we need to upload the ginning documents? Yes, all the way back to the farm. Anything in between. How can we ask to customer to send signed copy? You have to train customer regarding this. I'm not sure, Mr. Ali Reza, which document you are referring to. We already replied Ejazuddin's message. So thank you very much for listening to us. If you have further questions, you can see our email addresses, so you can reach out from there. And webinar recording will be shared with you. Have a great day.